Well, Jay Levine, thank you very much. It is now 17 past midnight. You should be getting some word anytime soon.
Yeah, the word will come out. The process, as has been described many times over the evening, is that once the curtain is closed, John Wayne Gacy will be pronounced dead. Nick Howell will then get his thoughts together. He will find out from Warden Salvador Godinez exactly what the last words of John Wayne Gacy were, if indeed there were any. As Gacy told me over the weekend by phone, he said he thought that his last words would be, I know the truth and the truth shall set you free. Whether or not he goes along with that initial plan and utters those words, we know not now yet, but we know that Warden Godinez was going to take his statement. We're also told by Nick Howell, who talked to John Gacy for about 45 minutes earlier this evening, from 7 to 7:45, that Gacy told him what he was going to say, but asked him not to tell everybody else. We asked Nick Howell how long that statement was. He said probably less than a minute. We also asked him if there were any new revelations, things about crimes that we didn't know yet. He said no, nothing like that. So that's what we do know about the statement. That's what we know about the procedure. It will probably take Nick Howell about 2 or 3 minutes to walk out here. So given the fact that the timing of the execution, pronouncing him dead, I would say it would take about 7 or 8 minutes after Gacy is actually pronounced dead before he comes out here. It's now about 18 minutes after the hour, and so I still think we have a little bit of wait ahead of us.
Jay, speaking of Nick Howell, I thought it was interesting. You asked him the question. He had spent all these years with Gacy, sort of as his liaison to the outside world, and when you asked him his feelings tonight, knowing that this man was about to be put to death, he said he couldn't describe it. He said it was too complex.
Well, he's been through a lot with John Wayne Gacy. We talked about the 2-hour interview with Channel 2 News. Well, Nick Howell has repeatedly talked to him. The two have battled, they fought, they had their disagreements, they made up, they became closer and closer, and you know, in the end, John Gacy patted Nick on the back and said, "Nick, I'll see you." Those were the last words from John Gacy to Nick Howell. But Nick Howell has been closer than virtually anyone else throughout these last 14 years, from the time John Gacy first arrived on death row, when there were only 4 other death row inmates there. Now there are more than 150 inmates on the condemned units at 4 state penitentiaries in the state of Illinois. There were only 4 at the time John Gacy was brought to death row, down at Menard in Chester, Illinois, downstate, about 60 miles southeast of St. Louis. So Nick and John Gacy have been through a lot together. So I think part of the reason is that they really were very complex. The other part is that Nick Howell is, of course, talking as a Department of Corrections official tonight and has to be somewhat careful about what he said, especially before the execution.
I would agree with that. Traditionally, the death penalty has always been most difficult for those who have to carry it out.
Well, exactly, and that is why they have 2 people behind the curtain in the other room, both pushing buttons simultaneously, so no one really knows exactly who was the executioner. Difficult for them, difficult for the witnesses as well. You heard John Wright, the reporter for the Terre Haute newspaper, one of the witnesses, say, "I feel a little squeamish. I don't know what to expect." He wanted very much to witness the execution as a student of criminology at the University of Indiana, I believe. But he still felt squeamish about going in and actually seeing it. Others, of course, have seen several executions. Nick Howell saw Charles Walker as well. And Joseph Kozenczak, this is a first execution for him. He, of course, was the chief of detectives for the Des Plaines police investigating the murder of Robert Piest, the murder that was John Wayne Gacy's undoing. This was the first execution for him. People feel a little squeamish, but he was very definite that John Wayne Gacy had to pay the price for what he did, and he was looking forward to seeing him pay that price.
Jay, we'll be back to you in just a few minutes. Thank you.
Good.
Our special edition, The Execution of John Wayne Gacy, continues in just 2 minutes.
Tomorrow on 2 News, meet Michael.
I live with my mother, my older brother.
Ville Correction Center, we are waiting for official word on John Wayne Gacy's execution. Let's go back to Joan Lovett, who is standing by in front of Stateville. for that official word. Anything yet, Joan?
Nothing yet, Bill. We were expecting something certainly within the next few minutes at the longest. As we've been telling you throughout the evening, the process was expected to take anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes. Then the coroner would have to pronounce Gacy dead, and then there would be some last-minute shuffling. Nick Howell's been fairly good about keeping us posted, knowing the urgency of getting this information out to you. So I would assume that if he's not here yet, things are not official at this point.
All right, thanks, Joan. Let's check in again with Jay Levine, who is also standing by at Stateville. Jay.
Linda, there are three people standing behind me, two of whom you can see, one who is partially hidden behind. He is hidden tonight because he is involved in several undercover investigations and we can't show his face. But we can talk to him, and I want to start with him, in fact. His name is Rafael Tovar, and he was one of the people down in the basement that first night. In fact, he shooed me off the property that first night that the bodies were first discovered. Tell me about that, being down there that first night.
Well, the first night we were down there, there was nothing that we found of any consequence because we were looking for a grave instead of graves, and so we only recovered evidence that led us to information about other missing people.
And when did you realize that there were more than one body, more than one grave?
This was until the execution of the second search warrant that we actually found pieces of two bodies in the same hole, and that's when we called in the medical examiner and started the digging for the multiple bodies.
How did you feel when that was happening?
Well, it was rather shocking to know that our suspicions were correct, that there were more missing people and dead people in the hole than what we were looking for.
Rafael, part of the reason that you were down there had the search warrants were the result of these two men, Dave Hackmeister and Bob Schultz, who were involved in the undercover operation, the surveillance operation of John Wayne Gacy. Before the truth came out, what was he like? What was he like to follow? Bob?
John's personality was very dynamic. Following John was it was a fiasco. It was a real fiasco. I think John felt all throughout the investigation that we were not going to make an arrest for something trivial, and he constantly broke the law and challenged us in every aspect that he could think.
In what ways? Constantly broke the law.
Traveling, passing people on the right, on the shoulder. We were traveling through side streets in Chicago in excess of 80 miles an hour. He knew that we weren't going to risk taking him in on traffic, and he just pushed it to the limit.
What was the toughest part of it, Dave?
I think the toughest part sometime was to befriend Gacy. That was part of our job. We had to make him trust us and think that we trusted him. And when you really wanted to just reach out and grab the guy and throw him around a little bit. But you had to be a little careful with him, and you had to pretend like you liked him.
You were playing good cop, bad cop with him?
And we did on occasion, right.
And now, as the three of you are gathered here tonight, obviously, I would think you would have liked to have been inside, correct?
I would like to have been, and yes, I would.
What are your thoughts on this night, 16 years after you began your investigation?
I think that first of all, it's a travesty that it's taken 16 years to bring closure on this particular case. I think it's been pure hell for the families to have endured for so long. And I would like to think that a part of me would like to rejoice with the families that this is closure for them. They can finally put it to rest.
And will you ever forget what happened?
I will never forget what happened. I wouldn't want to forget it. It was a life-changing investigation, and for that I'm very thankful.
Dave, are there any second thoughts, any squeamishness about the death penalty in this case?
Not at all, not for John Gacy. We listened to his confession. It was so graphic, it was unbelievable. What he did to those poor kids, I have no sympathy at all for John Gacy.
He says he never confessed. You heard it?
We heard it. We heard it first.
Tell me about that. Tell me. More so, we know what he did now, but more so how he said it. What kind of emotion? We have heard time and again that there's been no remorse. Was there any then?
There was no remorse at all. He confessed to 33 murders as a matter of fact. Explicitly how he killed the first person all the way through the 33rd person and where he buried him.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Bob Schultz, Dave Hackmeister, Rafael Tovar. Appreciate you joining us tonight. Bill and Linda, that's part of the emotion here tonight. Those are just some of the people here, and there are many, many others.
Jay, thank you very much for standing by on this watch. It's 29 minutes past midnight. At 12:01 is the time the state had scheduled the lethal injection to execute John Wayne Gacy. We presume that it has been done. We have no official word, however, so we're going to resume our normal programming at this time, and we'll cut back in for the official word from the state of Illinois that the execution has taken place.
We'll see you in a bit.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Diane Burns.
And I'm John Drury. We have late information now about the execution of serial killer John Wayne Gacy.
We take you back now live to Stateville Prison in Joliet and Channel 7's Chuck Gowdy. Chuck?
Diane, John, all the signs the last half hour that it was underway, but official confirmation coming just a few minutes ago through the Illinois Supreme Court that John Wayne Gacy was pronounced dead at 12:58 this morning, which would have been about exactly 20 minutes ago. Actually 10 minutes ago right now. It's 1:08, 12:58. Gacy pronounced dead in the lethal injection chamber here at Stateville Prison just outside Joliet. We're not sure why it took so long for the procedure to be carried out. It was supposed to start at 12:01, and there were some estimates that Gacy would be dead within 4 or 5 minutes. He was said to have prepared a rather short statement, less than a minute, by those who heard it. We're not sure whether he decided to ramble on once he was inside, or whether there were some problems with the machinery, or whether it just went slower than what state corrections officials had originally hoped. But it did take quite nearly 1 hour from the time the execution was supposed to start at 12:01. Just into May the 10th, which was his last set execution date. You may recall Gacy was supposed to die in 1980, which was his first execution date. Now, some 14 years later, he is finally put to rest here at the lethal injection chamber at Stateville. Corrections officials, you may be able to see off in the distance, in the dark, just near the main entrance to the prison, huddling at this hour. They have just left the administration building here. It looks like the Department of Corrections spokesman Nick Howell, along with some officials. The people you see running at this point, we believe, are the official witnesses, at least a couple of the media witnesses who were inside witnessing the Gacy execution. There were a handful of media folks picked out of a hat, essentially, from about 100 people who wanted to witness the Gacy execution. And now, back behind me, as you can see, corrections officials are coming to the podium where they will talk in just a couple of minutes. Paul Meinke from Channel 7 joins me live now as well.
A couple of those people who you just referred to, who we saw running toward us with the contingent coming over now, walked out as you were first talking, Chuck, with arms outstretched as if to say it is over, although they may very well be some family members or relatives of the victims who were coming over here, and they're expressing their satisfaction that the execution has finally taken place.
That could be as well. Let's throw it to the podium right now and see who is going to make the official announcement on behalf of the state of Illinois regarding the execution of John Gacy. Here is Nick Howell.
The official word on the execution, Jay, will be given by the Director of Corrections, Howard A. Peters III.
Good morning. John Wayne Gacy was pronounced dead at 12:58 a.m. With that, I'll be glad to speak to any questions you might have. His last words were, in essence, that taking his life would not compensate for the loss of the others. And he basically said that he saw this as the state murdering him, and he didn't think that would serve justice.
Did he look at or gesture at anyone inside that viewing room?
He did not.
Was he conscious at the time?
Yes.
Did he take any kind of sedative at all at 11 o'clock when he was offered?
He did not.
Was there any trouble getting him onto the gurney, getting him strapped down, anything like that?
No, he was very cooperative throughout the process.
Did he say anything?
Why it took so long? It took 57 minutes from the time the execution was set to begin.
Yes. During the second chemical, there was some problem with that chemical gelling in the line. We're not real clear whether it was the blood clotting with the needle or whether the chemical itself was gelling. So we had to rerun the line and go to our backup system.
What did John Wayne say in his final statement? What did Mr. Gacy say in his final statement?
His final statement was, in essence, that taking his life would not compensate for the loss of the others, and that this was the state murdering him, and that wouldn't serve justice in his opinion.
Was he unconscious at the time?
What can you describe his physical body actions as the chemical started to flow?
Basically, the reaction was like going to sleep. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes and, kind of dozed off.
What was his state when the chemical malfunctioned?
With the second chemical, did it have any effect on him? Did he
Not visibly. He just laid there and appeared to be asleep. You couldn't tell whether he was still breathing or not at that point.
Well, so the second chemical was supposed to stop him from breathing, is that correct?
The second chemical, yes, the second chemical is the chemical that stops the breathing.
Didn't stop him from breathing?
The second chemical didn't completely go in the first instance because, as I indicated, there was a gelling or clogging in the line.
How long was it taking to die? Was it a problem with the equipment, or was it a problem peculiar to Mr. Gacy?
It didn't seem to be a problem with the equipment. It seems to be, if it's a problem with the chemicals gelling or a problem with blood clotting in the needle.
Did you suffer obvious pain during that?
There was no indication of any suffering at all. As I indicated, he took this deep breath and sighed and appeared to fall asleep.
Was he already unconscious? Was he already unconscious at the time that malfunction occurred?
He appeared to be, yes.
Director Peters, how long did it take to correct the problem, and what did they have to do? Did they have to reinsert the needle?
No, we didn't have to reinsert the needle, but we had to rerun another tubing. And, well, the needle that was in his arm, we didn't have to replace. We replaced the needle that went into the tubing and attached a new tube.
Did all the witnesses see this? Did all the witnesses watch as this was taking place?
Well, once there was a malfunction and we saw that the chemicals weren't going in, we closed the curtain, reran the tube, and reopened the curtain.
How long was Gacy on the table before he was pronounced dead? How long was he attached to the gurney?
Once the process was completed, he was examined and pronounced dead in a matter of minutes.
Before he started to flow, how long was he on the table? 30 minutes, 20 minutes, how long?
He was placed on the table minutes before he was brought into the execution chamber. So he was on the table only shortly before he was brought in.
What time was he brought in?
He was brought in around 12:15, as I recall. I don't have it in my notes, but he was...
Officers went to 12:15. Did he show any resistance at all?
Not at all. He was cooperative throughout the process. The question with regard to when were the buttons initially pushed, the buttons were initially pushed at about 12:40.
12:40?
12:40.
Where's his body right now?
So he was there for 25 minutes before the buttons were pushed?
In terms of the process of putting him on the gurney, securing him, preparing him to go in, that process took...
That was still back in the cell.
Exactly. That process took a period of time.
So including the time that you had the problem, the malfunction, it took approximately 18 minutes?
That's about right.
12:40 to 12:58.
That's about right.
Howard, there's been a lot of criticism of this whole process of using this method to execute people, and there was some talk about whether it was effective or not. I know in practice with this system. What do you say about the fact that it failed you, at least temporarily, and what do you say to people who may say this gives more rise to arguments that the entire system of execution is wrong?
Well, I don't think it provides any information with regard to that issue at all. The machine has worked every time we've tested it. Other states, as you know, use the same machine. So I don't think that this is an indication that there is a problem in the process. There was a problem, a temporary problem in this instance, but in terms of the process, it worked. We had to, make some adjustments, but the process worked, and it worked effectively.
Were any members of any of his victims
Until the state has put to death the person
There were members of the victim's family at the institution, but not in the chamber. I don't recall what that number is. I don't know what that number is. Yes, he did make a final statement, as I indicated earlier. His final statement was basically that taking his life would not compensate for the loss of the others, and that taking his life was the state murdering him, and he didn't believe that that would serve justice.
Do you plan to make any changes with the machine because of this malfunction?
Well, I intend to examine the process in terms of the chemicals, the type of tubing, and all of that to make some determination as to why this occurred. And if we find that there needs to be some adjustments, then we'll make those adjustments.
Calling off any executions until that's finished, or do you?
Well, at the moment, we don't have any schedule in the immediate future, so there's plenty of time to raise these questions and examine those issues to see if there's any adjustment that needs to be made.
How many witnesses were there altogether? In the back, please.
I believe 35, somewhere between 35 and 40.
Who exactly was making the adjustments?
I'm advised there were 41 witnesses.
What is the point, sir, of having witnesses if you're going to pull the curtains when something goes wrong? Aren't they there in part to make sure that the process goes right?
They're there to witness the process. They witness the process. They're there to witness. They're there to witness the execution. They witness the execution.
Did a doctor make the adjustments that needed to be made here?
No.
Who did that? Was it
the persons who were involved in the process? The doctor only was involved in pronouncing death once the entire process had been completed.
Director Peters, did Gacy make any comments at all at any time regarding his guilt or innocence?
He is consistently, during the course of today, when I've had various conversations with him, he has consistently maintained that he was basically innocent. He indicated that he was responsible for only one of the murders. And,
Director Howard Peters, the Director of the Department of Corrections. Joining us now is John Ivanek, who is a reporter with TV station WREX in Rockford. He was one of the journalists selected in the lottery around the state to witness the execution, one of 12. There were 6 formal witnesses and a lot of other people in the room as well. How many altogether?
Approximately 40. We all took a quick look around the room. Terrence Gaynor from the state police was there, along with some other prosecutors of the case that were also in the room. So about 40. We were all very crowded in that room, and it got very warm.
So lest there be any confusion about the process and the problem that they had with one of the chemicals, with the tube, with the IV, the process began at 1 minute after midnight, but he actually was not wheeled in on the gurney and made visual to you until when? About 12:35?
It was 12:35 when he was first made visual. We could tell there were people on the other side of the room because the shadows on the curtain. We could tell there were a lot of people in the room. There was a lot of movement, a lot of motion going on. We were in the execution witness chamber for about 6 or 7 minutes before the curtain was pulled back when we first saw John Wayne Gacy.
All right, and when you saw him, he's on top of the gurney. Does he move? Does he speak? What happens?
He was motionless. Director Peters went up and asked him something, said something to him, and we assumed there was a conversation at that point, but he did not say anything. He did not look towards the witnesses. He did not look towards the glass partition at all. He kept very motionless, his eyes fixed straight ahead. You could tell he was concentrating on his breathing, in and out, and then there was one little gasp after about 4 or 5 minutes after the sodium pentothal began to take effect, and that's when you saw, an effect on his body.
All right, and then in increments, 2 minutes later, you hear the clicks that signal the new chemicals being put in, the bromide and then the potassium chloride?
Correct, and then slowly the breathing became less and less noticeable until you started to then see changes in his skin color, turning a slight tint of blue, which wasn't there when the whole process began.
I suspect there will be a good bit of speculation and discussion about problems with the system, the lethal injection machine. There was after Charles Walker, now after an admitted problem here. Do you suspect that's going to happen again?
Well, I'm not sure. They certainly were very quick to shut the curtain and fix the problem. And when the problem was corrected, they opened the curtain back up, and we viewed about another 5 more minutes of the execution. I do not know what exactly went on. I imagine they were, during the debriefing there, but I don't think it was a violent problem. And I don't think it was a problem that will prohibit them from doing this again in the future.
All right, John, thank you very much. John Ivanek, WREX in Rockford. We're going to go throw it back to the podium where Bill Kunkel, the lead prosecutor in the Gacy case, is now talking.
Dead. He got his just deserts punishment, and justice has finally been served.
How does that make you feel, Bill? If Gacy suffered, do you think it's fit that it ended that way?
I am a layman. I've heard enough of the legal arguments. I know enough about the process to know that he didn't suffer. he got a much easier death than any of his victims. In my opinion, he got an easier death than he deserved. But the important thing is that he paid for his crimes with his life.
Bill, what about his last statement that killing him won't bring back any of the victims?
Of course it won't. And why would anyone think that it would? What it brings back is a sense of justice, a sense of an appropriate sentence, the only kind of awful, AWEFULL, sentence that can make the law a teacher, that can make the system show every citizen, every innocent victim, that the system cares enough about those innocent lives to exact the most terrible penalty.
When he was coming in, did he make eye contact with you at all, or?
No, he didn't have the guts.
Bill, do you think that there was anything in the fact that it didn't work the way it was supposed to work? Do you think there's anything to that? Do you think there's any message there?
No, the message is it took a few minutes longer. It gave him another 5 or 6 minutes that he didn't deserve.
Why do you, I mean, I was in there too, Bill, and I was only 2 rows behind you. And for you to say he didn't make eye contact with us because he didn't have to discuss was just absolutely absurd. You're making a speech.
Charlie Walker made eye contact with me. I guess he doesn't have the guts to talk to me either.
Charlie Walker, of course, the first executed by lethal injection a couple of years ago here in Illinois, right at Stateville Prison. Greg Tejeda, one of the official witnesses, a reporter for UPI, joining us now live. Bill Kunkel there, obviously always outspoken, but claims that Gacy didn't suffer enough here. Did he suffer at all from what you saw?
It was such a clean, almost clinical execution. It was almost like after a couple minutes he went to sleep, his eyes just closed. I mean, the only kind of reaction from him was an initial snort. You know, that little jerk of the head as they started the drugs. Eyes closed after about a couple minutes, and after about 5 minutes, the heaving of his belly stopped. You know, because for a while it was pretty active. You know, he was still breathing really heavily. It was almost very clinical. You know, just.
When he was brought in and the curtain was pulled back, did it appear as though he was conscious at that time?
It was hard to tell. I almost detected a slight movement, but I'm talking very slight. You know, just. But, you know, obviously if they had to pull it back, you know, and continue the process, you know, something must have.
And you folks did not hear his final statement?
No, we did not. We were on the other side of a wall through a glass partition. We could hear a little bit of mumbling, and at one point what sounded like a priest delivering the last rites, but we could not make out exactly word for word what was being said.
And after there was the first chemical was injected and there was a problem with the second one and they closed the curtains again, did you know at that point there was a problem, or at that point did you think it was over?
I was almost surprised at how quick it went, you know, since the initial maybe about 5.5, 6, 7 minutes. I wasn't sure quite what to think. I mean, the obvious heaving of the chest had stopped, you know. My first thought is that was very quick. I thought it was over. Then when they reopened, you know, I sort of registered that maybe something's off a little bit here.
You're in there as an official witness, yet they close the curtains at a time when there's a problem. Do you find that unusual?
Well, I'm told it's to allow the doctor anonymity to pronounce the body dead, but it struck me as being a little odd.
Okay, all right, Greg, thanks very much. A reporter for UPI, an official witness here tonight at the execution of John Gacy. Still some activity out here with witnesses coming to the podium, but for now, Chuck Gowdy and Paul Meinke live at Stateville. John and Diane, back to you for the moment.
Thank you, Chuck. And here's what we can tell you about what happens now. An autopsy will be performed at the Will County Coroner's Office in Joliet. Gacy's attorneys say that tales about burial services are not being disclosed. In the past, Gacy has said he wanted a funeral mass at St. Francis Borgia Church on West Addison Street, and that he wanted to be buried in Mary Hill Cemetery in Niles. A church spokesman says that no funeral arrangements have been made. Well, family members of many of Gacy's victims have often said that there would be a sense of relief once Gacy was finally executed.
Well, for more on that, we go to Channel 7's Russ Ewing at Elk Grove Village. Tonight, he's with the father of a young man believed to have been one of Gacy's last victims. Russ?
We're here with Harold Peast, who's been waiting patiently. He has had a frown on his face. He looked a little worried. He looked concerned, but he says now it's all over.
It's all over, Russ, and after 14 years, we finally got our wish that he's been executed, and justice has been brought to the to Chicago area. Let's put it that way.
You heard the strong words of William Kunkel, the prosecutor, who said some pretty strong things. Do you concur with that?
Yes, I concur very much with Bill Kunkel and his expressions about justice being done finally about this case.
But Gacy said that killing him wouldn't justify, wouldn't help the young men who were killed. What's your response to that?
Yeah, but there was 33 people he killed, and he's only died once. And I think this is a sad thing to have. Just one death when there's 33 boys that he killed. So
it's apparent that Mr. Peace has suffered. You can see it in his face. You can feel it in his expressions. He has suffered for a long time, and his whole family has almost been destroyed. He says that now it's all over. Russ Ewing reporting live from Elk Grove Village. Channel 7 Eyewitness News. Back to you, Diane.
Now, Russ, you heard Bill Kunkel say that justice has been served. You heard Gacy's final words. You've had key insight into this case, into the man. Is it finally over, especially considering that some of these victims were never identified?
There are still 7 or 8 victims that haven't been identified, and authorities are trying to do that. I think they're close to identifying another one. This may go on for a long time. These families will suffer as long as they're alive. And killing John Gacy won't ease their pain, but they will be relieved, and they're all saying that they are relieved just a bit.
Thank you, Russ, for your coverage. Well, that concludes our special coverage on the execution of John Wayne Gacy.